Atonement for Me, Episode 82, Hyperemesis. Hey Magical Misfits, it's Kaidain Ivy, and welcome back to Atonement for Me. So last week, I mentioned that we're having a baby and that I had been quite sick, morning sickness wise. And I've had morning sickness pretty much from conception. I've always had really bad morning sickness. I've always been extremely ill when I, first trimester of pregnancy, so I expected that going in. Mentioned that to my doctor, and we did get medication for that. However, it was worse than it has ever been in previous pregnancies. And I was severely ill all the time. I started throwing up pretty much from conception and conception crampings, and then didn't stop. So by the time I was probably around 9-10 weeks, so that had been a couple months of me not eating consistently, not being able to drink consistently, it was really, really bad. I couldn't keep liquid down. I couldn't keep medication down. All I was throwing up was stomach acid. I couldn't sleep because I was throwing up every 20 minutes. And I looked at Donald and I'm like, okay, I really need some kind of medical intervention at this point. And my family doctor was on vacation that week, of course. So I did end up at the IWK. Normally, they only see people at 20 weeks and above, but because it was morning sickness and I'd been throwing up so consistently, they saw me. When they saw me, I was so dehydrated that I couldn't regulate my body temperature. I was shaking. My hands were literally gnarled, and my lips were burnt from throwing up so much that I got admitted to the IWK for a week of IVs and trying to get on some form of schedule to keep me regulated. And that's when I found out that I have hyperemesis, which is you have morning sickness and then you have extreme morning sickness, which would be hyperemesis, when you literally cannot keep anything down. So I was on IV for the majority of my nutrients for that week. Liquids weren't going down. It was really scary because when you get the stomach flu and you're throwing up all the time, as soon as you throw up, you'll feel better, and that eventually you give it a day or two, you'll be fine. This was just constant with no feeling better, and there is not quite an end game in sight because you have zero idea what your hormones are going to do. So food aversions that I had last week are different than the food aversions that I had that week. It was really, really difficult to stay on top of. I was so weak, I could barely speak because I was so dehydrated. And then I wasn't able to take anything orally because we were trying to settle my stomach. And so everything was going through IV. So I was just so depleted and exhausted all the time. Managed to come home for a couple days, and then it seemed to get worse again, and I just couldn't keep anything down. And I find that if I am late on any of the medication, or I don't eat frequently enough, or I skip any of the little tiny steps throughout the day, it can set me right back to pretty much hospital level. I had a major stressor as well at that point. And all of that combined just kind of tipped me over the edge. So I ended up in the hospital again for a little over a week. It's supposed to be the worst between weeks 9 and 14. So hopefully I'm in that range of people who kind of taper off around the second trimester or just beginning into it. There's no guarantee because it's hormones. And that's pretty much why I have accomplished next to nothing for the past 3 months, because it has been crippling, of just not being able to do anything, not having the energy, or just throwing up all the time, or just being hospitalized. It is a lot going on in your body in the first trimester. They don't really think about you're forming an entire human being. But I found, particularly when baby hit a growth spurt, I was able to keep like nothing down. Like everything was just really uncomfortable. There was so much pressure, and then everything just kind of came up. So hopefully we've started to turn a corner for that. I can't tell you how many times I canceled on Sheldon for trying to get a podcast out and talk about the pregnancy, or just being able to announce it, and we just weren't able to at the time. And it's really funny having people tell you, oh, just don't stress, when you're throwing up all the time, and it is incredibly stressful. So that just ends up being another cycle that can just spiral you out of control, sickness wise. So it has definitely been a journey, and it's definitely been a learning experience, and I don't envy anybody else who had to deal with hyperemesis during their pregnancy or any kind of severe morning sickness. But fingers crossed, I'll be able to get a little bit more done, hopefully, and that's just the tea.